The Steelers had a lot of options for pick 32, and as you know, they chose to stay pat. Good evening from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the south side. As you can see, we're in the indoor facility. We are away from all of the madness across the parking lot. He is Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. Joey Porter Jr., after all the talk, after all the speculation, after all the what could they do, who are they going to take, mock drafts 1.0, 3.0, 29.0, Joey Porter Jr. is staying home, Chris.
Yeah, I had him going in my mock draft 1.0, but it was at number 17, which, if you are jumping in on YouTube and Facebook, by the way, please ask your questions. Mm-hmm. This is I don't know if you can tell, I'm just so excited. This is my favorite time of the year for like other than the Super Bowl. I think this might be my favorite time of the year.
If you can't tell, Chris is highly caffeinated. There's a nice coffee sitting, I don't know, 3 feet away.
Need a lot of caffeine for something like this.
On the other side. So pick 32, of course.
Yeah, I had Porter going at 17 in my first mock draft, but the Steelers didn't have to take him at 17. They had him available at 32, and they took a lot of calls. They took a lot of calls. There were obviously going to be a lot of suitors that were looking for Will Levis, a quarterback, possibly, any teams wanting to trade up. But, hey, Joey Porter Jr. was there. He was available, and the Steelers were like, you know what? This guy's going to be our next cornerback. And I have to say, 17, it's probably not the best selection for them, but at 32, I think it's really, really good.
It could have worked at 17, provided something at 32 came about, right? Whether they traded back into the first round, or maybe they found some value at 32. We'll talk about more value that the Steelers got tonight. And yes, Scott is in, Foston's in. So listen, if you got questions, we're here to answer. We're going to be here for quite a while. And look, the Steelers taking Porter at 32. Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, they had the cards in their hands, right? They had the power with the 32nd. There were teams that wanted quarterbacks. Obviously, Tennessee trades up to get Will Levis to pick after the Steelers take Porter. So there was a lot of thought about what the Steelers could potentially do. And look, right on the screen here, Scott from YouTube asked, SirVocea Dennis in the 4th round tomorrow. Now,
I'm going to go to the Pitt guy for this one.
So I wrote about, if there was one Pitt player that I wanted to see the Steelers take, it was going to be SirVocea. And the reason for that was not just because he's a freaky athletic backer, 41.5 vertical, really nice 40 time, just tested really well at his pro day. Yep. He is the smartest linebacker you will find on the block. And I think that is something that Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, and company could really use in that dime linebacker look, in that just like viper position, if you will. Yeah. And I think he would make a really nice fit. That's why I wrote about him as the one Pitt player. And, you might have thought Elijah Cansey, obviously, but that was the guy for me. So I would love to see SirVocea come in the 4th round. What do you think about that potential?
So he kind of, I want to say turned my head, but he kind of raised my eyebrows just a little bit when I saw him at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, I didn't get nearly as close of a look at him as you did, during the football season because you're a lot closer to Pitt. But whenever I got to see him a little bit up, closer up, at the Senior Bowl, it was like, okay, I could see this. Maybe not like 4th round. I was thinking more like 5th, 6th round. Like maybe if they haven't addressed inside linebacker, which that leads right into Fat Tony's question from YouTube. I love everything we've done so far, but what's the plan at inside linebacker? Well, SirVocea Dennis could be something that they do later on. Obviously, with the way the draft played out, they used that 3rd round pick to trade back. So they could have taken one at 80. They decided to trade back 13 spots. Before then, they picked at 93. We saw Henley from Washington State go away. We saw, and then we saw Trenton Simpson go to the Ravens. Why the Ravens? I don't know if they're running a 4-4 defense now or what they're doing.
It's a lot of linebackers.
Now they have a lot of linebackers. Queen and Smith weren't enough. Now they have to have Trenton Simpson as well. So, they could still, get an inside linebacker. It's just not that great of a class. Dennis could be an option. And I see somebody, John right here. Yeah, John said re-sign Jack cheap. It's a possibility if the Steelers know him, they like him. If the medicals are all good, if they feel good about the groin injury, then possibly they bring him back. But yeah, they probably need to add some sort of depth. But I don't think it's anything with what they've done in the trenches, what they've done at quarterback, and now taking advantage of a really good class of tight ends and drafting Darnell Washington. It sounds like a lot of tight ends in the room, but this is a really good class. You don't want to pass up on it. I think it's I don't know. if that's like the worst spot on the roster right now with what they've already done with Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts and having Mark Robinson as the third, I don't know. That's already better to me.
Now, before we get into talking about Keeanu Benton and Darnell Washington, as you mentioned there, here's what the Steelers have on tap for Saturday. Of course, day 3, rounds 4 through 7. Currently 1 pick in the 4th round. That's at 132 overall. That came with the trade with Carolina. Carolina moves up from 93 to 80 to get their guy. I don't remember off the top of my head. And the Steelers, in turn, get a day 3 selection back, which they needed, because if they didn't do that, they would have been sitting from pick 80 until pick 241, which, no, that's just not happening.
That's a long time.
That's just not happening. So Chris mentions it. Darnell Washington, tight end from Georgia in the 3rd round at 93. But let's go to Keeanu Benton real quick before we take some more questions at 49. Benton, obviously, nose tackle out of Wisconsin. He was teammates with Isaiah Loudermilk, teammates with Nate Herbig. Of course, the Wisconsin pipeline, it seems like all they do is breed offensive and defensive linemen. Your thoughts on Benton as a nose tackle? I know you saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he really stood out there.
He turned a lot of heads at the Senior Bowl. I kind of went in kind of already having a little bit of a nugget of like, hey, if you have to watch anybody, like if you have a few different names you want to watch, Keeanu Benton was one of the guys that I was kind of told to watch a little closely. And when I got a look at him up close, I'm like, that is a really big guy that can eat up space in the middle, but can also has a lot of good traits to get after the quarterback. And the Steelers love to get after the quarterback. It doesn't matter if it's from the edge, if it's from the interior, where no matter where it's coming from, if they can have guys who can rush the passer, and if Benton has those kind of traits. Now they're gonna have to coach him up a little bit on it, but he, Terrell Austin talked about it tonight. He is a little bit more polished than some of the other defensive tackles that were coming in. So I think the Steelers have a really good pick there. He's really strong. He possesses traits where he can be versatile. He doesn't have to be a 0 technique. He doesn't have to be a 3 technique. He can play kind of up and down the line a little bit. Maybe not as versatile as some of the other guys, not like a Brian Brzee or anything like that, which is probably because if so, then he would have been like a surefire 1st round pick. But obviously, I think it's a really good pick.
And here's the tail of the tape real quick on Benton. His NFL Combine measurements and his, stats, if you will, were absolutely tremendous. He was near top 5 in every athletic measurable, bench press, speed, vertical, broad jump. He is a freak athlete for his size, and that's something I think that's really, desirable. And then Darnell Washington, go for it.
Darnell Washington, he's a freak. 6'7", over 260 pounds, and runs like a 4.6 something 40. Like this, he's just a freak. Matt Canada was smiling ear to ear when he was talking about him. As he should be. Getting back to your question, Scott asks, whether it be through the draft or free agency, what could be the plan for 3rd outside linebacker? This is a really good edge rusher class. Yeah, there's been a lot of edge guys that have already gone, but the depth is still there. I'm going to look a little bit, there will be more coverage on DK Pittsburgh Sports coming on later, where we can possibly look and see what all names are still there. But there is still plenty of options left in the draft, whether it be a 4th round guy. I was kind of thinking that if they didn't take like Darnell Washington, I was thinking they'd take Nate's brother,
Nick Herbig.
Nick Herbig. So,
the name Simpson came out of your mouth a few times, and it's like, that's the guy I really like for the Steelers. That's the guy I think they could get with that 80, but obviously they trade back. That doesn't happen, which leads into Pink Pilgrim's question here. If the Steelers grab Jack Campbell in the 2nd round, now considering 32. Considering would they have had to move up, and obviously they would have. It was evident.
He went because Jack Campbell actually went to the Lions at 18. So I didn't foresee that happen. I don't think the Lions' 1st round. And we're obviously going to talk Steelers here, but the Lions' 1st round left me a bit perplexed. So the Steelers wouldn't have even had the opportunity to take Jack Campbell tonight because he was taken at 18th overall. Which, in my opinion, I don't think any inside linebacker was really worth. Considering all the other positions, the entire class, I don't think an inside linebacker was worth the 1st round.
I say with the Lions, I think Dan Campbell, number 1, was playing fantasy football. Number 2, I think he did this draft backwards.
Joseph, I'm telling you, Steelers love bloodlines, man. Like call a spade. That's what it is.
Yeah. Haywards,
Porters.
Keep going.
So,
there's a lot of them. But look, when I think about what the Steelers were able to do in this draft, Darnell Washington, there were some concerns about his knee. Obviously, when you're 6'8", 275, first off, he would look really good in Pitt's front court. They could win a national championship next year with a guy that size. Number two, when you think of a guy that big, 6'8", 275, in a roundabout, there's some wear and tear that happens. And look, for Georgia, Matt Canada said it best. He wasn't going to pop stats off the paper at you because of how deep Georgia's offense was, but he wasn't really utilized as like a Dalton Kincaid, for example, was, or a Michael Meyer was at Utah and Notre Dame, respectively. When you look at Darnell Washington, this is going to be your road grader. This is going to be Najee Harris's best friend out in open space. This is also going to allow, and I love that Matt Canada talked about this, he's also going to free up Pat Freiermuth. And the ability to spread Pat Freiermuth into the slot, they can put him wide. They don't have to confine Freiermuth. And for the fact of that matter, you can move Connor Hayward to fullback or H-back, whatever position you want to call it. Zach Gentry now, with him re-signed, becomes more valuable at that position. This was a really solid get, not just from the standpoint of Washington as an athlete, but I think just from an offensive schematic standpoint and the amount of different looks now that the Steelers offense can give you.
So the other thing that Matt Canada talked about that plays the role in the Darnell Washington selection, because now everybody's thinking, okay, you've got Pat Freiermuth, you got Zach Gentry, you got Connor Hayward, and now you have Darnell Washington. That's 4 tight ends. That's too many tight ends. Well, Connor Hayward is probably built more like a fullback than he is a tight end, even though he played tight end last year and he became more involved in the offense over the course of the season. I still think, Derek Watt's still not signed. I think, and Matt Canada kind of hinted at it a little bit tonight, I really think Connor Hayward's going to turn more into a fullback, tight end hybrid that kind of does a little bit of everything in the offense. We saw Connor Hayward already kind of do some non-tight end things last year, like running a jet sweep to clinch the game against the Raiders on Christmas Eve. So I think Connor Hayward might shift more into a versatile role where he plays in different positions, and that'll free up the ability to then use 2 tight end sets where you have Freiermuth and Gentry, or Freiermuth and Washington, or have 3 tight ends, have 2 on the line, and have Freiermuth out in the slot. So it's just so many more options for this offense, and that's just something they didn't have last year, and they have that this year. And then when you add in the fact that you have Freiermuth in the slot, and you haven't even talked about any of the receivers that can be out there, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, there's just a lot of options there.
Now, when you look at, by the way, what the Steelers are doing on offense.
Good point, by the way. I trust the Steelers medical staff who saw Washington in person. Listen,
it says Washington, but
sorry, I don't.
We were all using
Windsor, okay.
We were all using Washington and Washington and whatever dialect you have of that. No, I say Washington because I'm from the Youngstown area, so But the thing about this, how about this? Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington, and now George Pickens. Georgia Steelers. The Eagles are doing the same thing on the other side with the Georgia. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. Last year they got a couple Georgia. The state of Pennsylvania is becoming Georgia North. It's pretty amazing. And, Washington talked about, hey, I get to be back with Pickens. And, of course, he and Broderick Jones are going to be lining up next to each other now on a lot of sets next year. So that's going to be just a lot of excitement.
Yes. Thank you, Pittsburgh Toddy 86. Hayward can play practically anywhere. You saw that last year, saw just a little bit of a glimpse of it. I think that I remember having a couple conversations. I remember having one conversation with my dad, who's a passionate Steelers fan. And so like whenever I told him, about the possibility of taking like a tight end, he was like, oh, we already have too many tight ends. I'm like, listen, versatility and depth is not a bad thing to have. It's just not. And this is to take him at 93rd overall. Yeah. The Steelers have, really, really great medical staff. I don't.
All right, real quick, I want to get to this point for Vegas, TJG. On Madden, I was an avid Madden guy when I was growing up. Usually it was the other way around. The tight ends upgraded their overalls when they became fullbacks. So real quick on that. This one right here, this is interesting for 4th down back. Do you think the Steelers took Keeanu because Brian Branch, that was my guy. Now, remember, if you read my mock draft, I gave a detailed explanation of why Brian Branch was my guy. He was my guy because he played the toughest position in the toughest defense in college football. He played the star position on the Saban defense. Another guy that played the star position on the Saban defense was Minka Fitzpatrick, the Steelers team MVP from last year. So the way that I saw it was Go get another one of these guys that you can move around the field. He could play slot corner, safety, even that dime linebacker a little bit. I thought he was going to be very versatile. Now, the question here from fourth down back, obviously, did the Steelers take Keeanu because Branch was gone? Possible, but also Keeanu, it seems like, was high on their board all along.
Yeah, Keanu's been on their radar ever since the Senior Bowl, for sure, and possibly even before then. But I learned about it at the Senior Bowl that he was definitely on their radar for sure. How much, obviously, when you're coming out of the Senior Bowl, or when you're coming out of those events, it's you don't want to get into the whole recency bias thing. You don't want to be like, oh, Keanu Benton's on the Steelers' radar, so now he's going to be a second round pick, because at the time he was kind of mocked as like he's more of a third round guy. Well, here he is going 49th overall, and we're, obviously months removed from the Senior Bowl. So sometimes those things that come out of those events, even though some people don't want to get caught up in recency bias, sometimes there's truth to those things. For example, Joey Porter Jr. not being the guy that they go up to get 14, not standing pat at 17 to take Porter, because, we learn at the combine he doesn't quite mesh with or match up with some of the other guys in the class. But obviously what they really wanted to do in the first round was take Broderick Jones, and that really fit. So I don't think it was necessarily just because Branch was gone, just the reason why they took Keeanu. Keanu's been on their radar for quite a while.
Real quick here for Perk Jr., I just want to clarify. I say I'm from Youngstown, so people know what I'm talking about. There's people that are not all from Western Pennsylvania. I was born in Sharon, grew up in Brookfield, right across from the Ohio-PA line. I went to Youngstown State, so they can claim me. Here's the beautiful thing about me. I can claim Western Pennsylvania. I can claim Northeast Ohio. I can claim Youngstown. I can claim Sharon. I can claim Brookfield. I can claim Hermitage. I can claim half a dozen places as my hometown, and they're all correct. So that's the beautiful thing about it. 4TL Music Group here. Did the Steelers trade back again from 132 and grab a slot corner? Now, here's the thing about the trade, the potential for trading back from 132. I don't think it would just specifically be for a slot corner. It would be obviously to get more capital too.
Yeah, could be more capital. Plus, I mean, there's still edge rusher to kind of worry about. Do the Steelers want to take an inside linebacker? It's like, kind of the top guys are all gone by this point. So I don't know. I don't know. Like, to me, they have guys. I know Patrick Peterson is going to be a guy who's moving. He's not going to be staying on the outside all season. He will be moving around. And so when you consider that, and you consider Joey Porter Jr., who is an outside guy, Levi Wallace, who is an outside guy, Akella Witherspoon, who probably more is an outside guy, you still have Patrick Peterson, who will be playing somewhat inside. Arthur Millette can still play inside. So you don't have to, but I think this is the thing that the Steelers have done really well, is that you're not pigeonholed into having to do, one or two positions. In the fourth round, you can take a slot corner, you can take an edge rusher. There are a bunch of different things. We have time for maybe a couple more questions.
Yeah, we're going to stick around for a couple more minutes, but a real quick toss up to you, Chris, here is going into day 3. What do you think the Steelers' biggest need is?
I would probably say either still inside linebacker or edge rusher, because they've taken care of tackle. They've taken advantage of a really strong tight end class. Because of signing Allen Robinson, you don't have to take a receiver, even though the Steelers love to take receivers in the draft. You don't have to, because, you have 3 really, you have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Anthony Miller, Miles Boykin, Gunnar Olszewski. I mean, you've got names there. You've got, plenty of names there. You don't have to take one. So I would think edge rusher or inside linebacker. I still think slot corner, probably there a little bit. I'm seeing some slot corner comments, and that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take one.
Positionless football, specialized football,
specialized football. I'm not saying you can't take one. I'm just saying probably I would like to have another option other than Mark Robinson as a third inside linebacker. I like Mark Robinson, but let's not fall in love with just 2 games worth of tape.
For me, the one position I'm looking at, and I'm not saying this is their biggest need, I'm looking at wide receiver. I thought if Josh Downs was going to be there, the North Carolina receiver, who of course went to Indianapolis, I believe it was at 79, so it would have been right before the Steelers picked at 80. I thought he would have been a good candidate as a slot guy, as that, third wheel, if you will, coming and learning from Allen Robinson, being that fourth wheel, if you will. Who knows? Obviously, Anthony Miller, what Calvin Austin brings after they drafted him last year. So,
final question tonight that we can take.
Oh, this is a great one.
We're running out of time. I saw this come across. Thank you, Chad, for asking it, because we're talking about a bunch of positions that are positions of need: inside linebacker, slot corner, edge. But any chance of a quarterback tomorrow? They did host Clayton Tune for a top 30 visit. So any chance of a cornerback or a quarterback tomorrow?
I think it's non-zero. The best part about it is it's not Will Levis, the guy that puts mayo in his coffee.
You just can't get over that.
Okay, look. Put mayo in the coffee and then eats bananas with the peel on them. I almost tried it today just to see how psycho it really was, and it really is. And, Will Levis was a phantom mock in the first round. But, look, we're going to do another one of these Steelers 24/7 broadcasts tomorrow.
I don't want to ignore, because there's a lot of Dotson questions I'm seeing popping up, and so I don't want to ignore you guys, but, because we are kind of over time now, but I don't want to ignore you guys. I don't have any indication right now, not saying it won't happen, because anything can happen in a draft. I don't have any indication right now that Dotson is going to be traded. The Steelers, as you can tell, 4 tight ends. What are you going to do with 4 tight ends? You have 4 interior linemen. I don't think that Dotson's just going to be traded because of what they've done in free agency. I think the Steelers like having options going into training camp, having everybody that they have. It seems like it's just too many, but I just don't see the Steelers like automatically just, we have to get rid of Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
So possibly they could. I mean, again, don't take anything off the table. I just haven't heard anything on that front just yet.
Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens tomorrow. There's a few picks to be made from the Steelers. Of course, they're back in the 4th round. They have 2 in the 7th, and they could potentially add a bit more. So Chris and I will be back here tomorrow on the South Side. We will run another Steelers 24/7, of course, after the festivities conclude and we're all done writing, and maybe collect our thoughts and maybe have a bite to eat or something.
More coverage coming. By the way, when you wake up in the morning, we're going to have way more on the site. We already have so many there. Dejan Kovacevic is going to have his column on Joey Porter Jr. There's going to be so much, so don't miss out on the content that's there. And by the way, it's like, if you're not subscribed, just it's $1. It's $1.
I spent 3 times that much on coffee this morning.
Yes.
And by the way,
you're going to be getting great draft coverage. So please, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
I have only one.
You're missing out.
I have only speaking of $1, I have only 1 sentence in my Washington file, so I need to go home and write that. To those of you tuned in to this live Steelers 24/7, thank you very much. If you're tuning in on the replay, please feel free to leave your feedback, leave your comments. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers. Find us on Twitter at Chris Halicke, at CD Crisan. You can find us anywhere. We're always up for discussion. We'll have a full live file for day 3. We'll have full discussion for day 3, stories from day 3, columns from day 3, everything from day 3, just as we did on 1 and 2. And we appreciate you all for jumping in, listening in, and asking questions. So until then, he's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. Talk to you tomorrow from probably the same exact place. Good night, everyone.